I'm so excited for today's tutorial. Today I'm sewing up the Bristol from Stitches by Christy. I'm using all fabrics from Jen's Fabrics, and I think this is going to be a really adorable combination. The Bristol is written kind of as a backpack with a strap to carry on the top. And I find that I have a little bit of a harder time selling backpacks in my area, so what I'm doing is I'm changing this up so it's not going to be a backpack, it's going to be a shoulder bag instead. All of my prints are cotton woven, everything is interfaced with the SF101. I did choose, this is something that may or may not work out perfectly, I chose to interface the lining instead of the exterior with foam. I'm going to switch this bag to a drop-in lining instead of a birthed bag, even though it has a recessed zipper. I'm going to go over all the steps while sewing this bag, but just know that if you want to make this a backpack or sew it as a birth bag, that is included in the instructions in the pattern. So like I said, my fabrics are from Jen's Fabrics. My zipper tape and these gorgeous rose zipper pulls are from Atelier Fiber Arts, and I have a tag from Heartwood and Hide. That's the supplies I'm using. Let's go ahead and get started sewing. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk about some of the prep work that I'm doing on this pattern. Since I'm doing this as a drop-in lining, this is going to be that top lining band that's going to be above the recessed zipper. So on the back of it, what I did was I drew a line and then I put a heavier weight of stabilizer like a Decaville light underneath that line. After we sew this together, I will simply fold this piece down to that line so that is what will start my recessed zipper. So as the prep work I did on this piece is I just drew a line, and my line is a 1/2 of an inch down. So that means that I will still get that same seam allowance whenever I fold down to that line. That is how I prepped those two top bands. So I'm going to set them aside because I won't need them towards the end of the pattern. I just want to let you know that prep work. If you wanted, you can draw this same line on the exterior, but as long as I have it drawn somewhere, then I can fold this down and then just make the exterior match to make sure it's even. The next thing I did was I have a recessed zipper. What you do on this one is you have 4 panels. You have 2 exterior, which is going to be this print for me, and then 2 lining, which is going to be the light purple. On the back, you draw a line on each side. The pattern tells you what measurement to make this line, and then what we're going to do after that is we're going to fold the raw edge to that line. The way I do this is I just use a glue stick to apply a layer of glue, and then I simply fold down that edge to that line, and then I press it on the iron. I do that on both sides, and then I do that for all 4 pieces. I already have the other ones done so that you can see how it looks when it's prepped. But go ahead and take out your 4 recessed zipper pieces and go ahead and do that on all 4 of those. I also took the time to prep, and on the exterior pieces only, I made marks for the center, and that will just help me later whenever I'm adding that to the bag. I'm going to set these aside after I have them prepped because we're not using them right now either. I'm only going to have 2 zippers. This one's going to be for that front feature focus zipper, so this will be on the front, and then this one will be for the recessed zipper, which is the main closure for this bag. On both of these zippers, I've already attached the pull, even though on the recessed zipper, I'll probably be separating this and taking it off. I just have it so I wouldn't forget all the pieces I needed. For the front one, keep the pull on and go ahead and add your zipper tabs. You should have 4 zipper tabs, 2 exterior, 2 lining. Do not interface those, there's no need to. For the recessed zipper, I went ahead and folded my edges down 90 degrees. I did use some glue to secure that. The zipper tab on this one is going to be, for me, just a traditional where you do a four-way fold and slip it on. The designer does tell you that you can use one of those metal zipper closure ends. I don't have any of those, so this is the way I'm doing mine. I will not add the zipper tab and sew it just yet. When I do my recessed zipper, as you'll see, I usually separate the zipper tape and sew each piece individually. I just have this prep now, so you can go ahead and get it ready, but don't sew it on yet. For this one, we can go ahead and sew. We are going to sew across both of these short edges. Then we're going to flip these zipper tabs apart so that they are wrong sides together, and then we will top stitch. This zipper is going to be one of the first things I'm using, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it out and add it to the front pieces. For that front pocket, you have a couple of pieces. You have your front middle exterior, your front bottom, and your front top. The zipper is going to go in between. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these and have them kept to the side because I will be using them quickly. Go ahead and get your zipper pocket lining piece out as well. Before I sew that though, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the straps. You will need some kind of handle, whether yours is as long as mine or whether you're using webbing or whatever you choose to do. I'm choosing to do a double fold. Like I said, I'm making this more of a shoulder bag, and so my straps will be longer than what the designer has written because hers are just meant to be a grab handle since this is a backpack. I'm going to go ahead and sew these. I'll do that off camera because a lot of people will be using webbing. She does give an option for a rolled handle, so after I sew these down, after I top stitch down both sides, I will come back and show you the rolled handle option if you want to create that on your own bag. Once you have those straps sewn, if you're using material or if you're using webbing, when you start with it, the designer tells you that you can do a rolled handle. The way you would do a rolled handle is you would measure down for where the designer tells you to start the rolled handle, and then you simply fold them wrong sides together if your material has a right and wrong side. After you do that, I usually will just clip all along that edge, and then I do a row of top stitching to secure that. So there will be a part that will be straight and flat, and then there will be the rolled edge. This is kind of like a faux rolled edge, and it's a really cute look if you want to do it. I'm not doing on this where I am making a shoulder strap. I want it to lay flat for comfort if you're wearing it for a long time. So I'm letting mine be like this, but if you're doing just the kind of grab handle, it's a really cute look. For me, I'm done with these straps. I'm going to set them aside until I need them at the end of the pattern. I'm going to start working on that front pocket. So I have the pieces I showed you earlier, and then I also have 2 lining pieces cut according to the pattern piece. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to place my zipper, I'm going to place my zipper right sides up. I'm going to have it closing to the right. And I'm going to lay it on top of this lining piece. So I am going to baste this in place just with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to attach the zipper to the lining. And now that I have that zipper attached to the lining, I'm going to pull out that middle panel piece to attach it as well. Just as a side note, I did mention that my zipper is from Atelier Fiber Arts, but I didn't mention that it is a silk zipper. It's really cool. You might need to be a little careful with working with it, but I really don't find it any different, and I love the way it looks. For this print, I was having a hard time finding the exact purple I wanted, so the silver was a really nice touch. Take that panel, place it right sides together, and this time you sew with the full seam allowance. I'm going to make for sure I match up the sides and the top. You can use clips or double-sided tape here, whatever makes it a more enjoyable sew for you. I'm just going to kind of be slow sewing and checking to make sure these 2 pieces are lined up properly. Once you have those sewn together, we're going to flip. You see my zipper is closing to the left now. I'm going to separate these 2 pieces and pull them so that they are wrong sides together. I'm just going to do a finger press to have that seam straight, and now I'm going to top stitch all along that seam we just sewed, 1/8 of an inch away from that folded edge. I'm going to pull out my other lining piece, have it right sides up, and simply lay this pocket piece right on top so that it's right sides up. This will let the 2 lining pieces be right sides together. Make sure your sides and the top are all matched, and this is just going to be a basting stitch. So just to attach these two pieces. Of course, these basting stitches are not necessary. You can always do a traditional zipper sandwich. It's just a personal preference that I don't. Now that you have that lining piece attached, go ahead and pull out that top main piece. Orientate it the way you want it to go, especially if you're prints directional, and then flip it down. Make sure you're matching the sides with the sides of this main panel. Your zipper tabs may be a little bit longer. I'm sewing with the full seam allowance on this top piece all the way across, making sure that I back stitch when I start and stop. Once you have that complete, go ahead and just flip this piece up. We're leaving the lining down, we're leaving the seam allowance up. We're just going to pull it up, press it flat, and then you're going to top stitch the same way across that folded edge, 1/8 of an inch away. Now that you have the pocket complete, let's go ahead and trim up this bottom part, and then we'll attach the bottom, and that'll close up our pocket. Both of my lining pieces are even with this main. If yours isn't for any reason, you would want to close this first, but for me, it's going to be easy to catch that and close it whenever I add this bottom piece. So for the bottom piece, go ahead and orientate it the way you want it to look at the end, then just flip it up and sew with the seam allowance given the pattern all the way across there. Make sure you match up the sides, and this will be what closes that pocket and finishes up our front. We are going to once again fold this piece down, leaving the seam allowance where it is. Just do a quick finger press, and let's top stitch to attach that seam to this bottom piece. Here is how my exterior looks. Now for your back piece, for me, I'm not doing anything. I just put a tag on it and that's it. But if you are doing the backpack option, you will need to add the straps, the connectors, all of that. So follow the pattern. It's written very well. You won't have any trouble. If you want to see me do a backpack version, just let me know. I'll definitely do one. Okay, I'm going to trim up the extra and my threads, and I'll be done with this part. And let's go ahead and sew up the sides and the bottom for the exterior. So this is the way the sides and the bottom will look. I have 2 side pieces and 1 bottom piece. I have them clipped right sides together. Just did that after I cut it, went ahead and clipped it. For the sides, I only have an SF101 on both of them. Like I said, I'm using my main stabilizer, the foam, on the lining pieces. But for the base, I did apply a heavier weight stabilizer just as extra. This is like a dick of a light on that. So that is how I have that right now. I am going to sew both of these short edges with the seam allowance given in the pattern. This pattern has so many unique ways you could do things. It's just like really good bones. So you could easily, if you want to make this a crossbody, use webbing and add a crossbody connector here on each side. Or if you're using vinyl, you could do a hidden connector. So many possibilities. I love to buy patterns that give me lots of options to create different bags. You don't have to top stitch the seam, but I always do. I just love everything to be laying flat. So I just pull, after I have it sewn, I just pull it up and then I top stitch. I'm going to top stitch on the side piece, not on the base piece, just to help distribute that bulk a little bit. I'm going to do that same thing for the other side. This is how that base looks. I'm going to go off camera and mark my centers on this and the centers on my back and my front, and I'm going to clip it onto the front, right sides together. I'll come back and show you. I just won't do the clipping on camera. But before I do all that, I'm going to show you how I'm going to make the slip pockets for that interior pocket. Like I said, I'm going to make 2 slip pockets instead of a zipper pocket on one of the sides. So both of them I don't have slip pockets. The way the designer has this written is that you will take your slip pocket, fold it wrong sides together, and then add a layer of trim like a raw edge material, a vinyl, cork, anything like that. That is a really nice way. It adds a really good touch. I love doing it that way. For me, instead of doing it that way, I'm just going to do more of a traditional slip pocket, and I'm going to fold this right sides together, sew along the top, turn it out, and top stitch. Now that I have this sewn at that top edge, I can flip it out through the sides. You can choose now to have this seam at the top, or you can choose to have it underneath. I'm going to choose to have it underneath, so you're not going to see my seam at all. I will press it flat, but I'm going to choose to top stitch it just like this. This is the way mine will look. I'm going to top stitch just 1/8 of an inch away from that top edge. After I have this done, I'm going to go ahead and pull out one of my lining pieces. The pattern tells you how far down you're going to measure from the top to place this piece. It's not going to be in your bottom seam allowance, just as a side note. For me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide one of these in half, and I think the other one into thirds. Once you have it sewn down, I'll have to trim up my edges. I just kind of rough cut mine. I'm going to come down to the middle, or wherever you want. If you don't want it in the middle, let's say we want to do slightly off center, we can do that too. This would be great for a cell phone or gum, and this would be bigger for a wallet. So this is how my slip pocket will look. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side and do it off camera, trim up my edges, and then get ready. And when I come back, I'll have my linings done, and then I will have that gusset piece clipped to my front exterior. This is such a quick, fun bag, especially with some of the simpler techniques I'm adding to mine. I have both of the linings done, so I'm going to set them aside and wait until we need those in another step. I have the gusset clipped right sides together with the front exterior piece. I clip at the top just to kind of help stabilize things, but the way I do this is I first find the centers of both the gusset and that front exterior, clip them, and then make a few clips here to kind of stabilize that. Then I go up to the top, clip there, and then the rest I just kind of ease around. This gusset fits very well, which is what you want. You don't want a loose gusset. If you have problems getting yours to fit in there, like if you're using a material that has no give at all, you may need to make some tiny snips into your gusset piece. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew this with the full seam allowance that's given in the pattern, making sure that I back stitch when I start and stop. I will just sew all the way through this, but I'll be really careful around those curves. If I find that the gusset is slipping, I'll grab my hemostats to kind of keep it pulled in place. I have the gusset attached to the front exterior. It looks great, fit perfectly. Now what I want to do is do those same steps to attach the gusset to the back exterior piece. Mine's pretty simple looking, but yours may have the strap bar here for the strap and connectors at the bottom. After I have that attached, I can turn that right sides out and my exterior is complete. The next thing I want to work on is that recessed zipper. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the zipper tab and the zipper pull. Like I said, I will be separating these. You don't have to, I just find it easier. So pull out one of your lining pieces. If it is directional, make sure you have it orientated the way you want. I am going to put my zipper tape right sides up all along that top edge. The pattern tells you how far to come in, but I always just come in about the same amount no matter what. So you can have a few clips there if you want, not a real big deal, but what I do is I just baste these together. So both pieces are right sides up. This is how that first piece looks. I sewed all the way down, back stitching when I started and stopped. Go ahead and pull out your exterior piece and then just lay it right sides down on top of that, making sure to match up this edge. It's really important to keep these edges matched. So now that I have these right sides together, everything matching up, I start sewing with the full seam allowance from one side all the way the other, and I'm really careful to make sure I keep that proper seam allowance and everything lined up. After we have these sewn together, we're simply going to separate them, pull them so they are wrong sides together, and then we will top stitch and baste all the way around to make this just one complete piece. This is how the first side looks. I'm going to go off camera and trim up my threads, and then I'm going to repeat the same steps for the other one. I'm not going to attach them just yet. I'll wait until after I have everything sewn. The last things I will do will be attaching the pull to this and adding the zipper tab. If that makes you nervous, you don't have to do it this way, but I find it's just easier for me to get a really nice sew having them separate. The next thing we need to do is to attach the recessed zippers to the lining. I matched up the center unsewn edge of both of these recessed zippers to the center of the lining panels. I want to note that that 90-degree angle is on opposite sides. If yours is still attached, yours will look differently than mine. Yours would be having to be sewn while they are attached like this, which is completely fine. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and baste both of these in place. You don't have to baste. You can go ahead and add in that top lining panel and sew with the full seam allowance. This is an extra step, but I always baste just for extra precaution. So I'm just going to baste these both in place, and then we'll pull out that lining top panel and add it. While sewing these, I noticed that my fabric was stretching a little bit. I'm just going to put these right sides together. I'm just going to line these up here at the top and see how far I am off with having them meet. So they look great on this side. I do see just a little bit of shifting on this side. I think it'll be okay that I don't need to redo it. Now that we have these on, let's go ahead and pull out our top lining panel pieces. This is the one where I drew the line. If you are not doing the drop-in, if you're birthing the bag, you do not need to have the line on yours. The way I do it is I orientate it so that the way it'll look at the end, this is the direction I want it to go, and then I just flip it down, match up those sides and top edge, and this time I sew with the full seam allowance. Once you have that top lining piece sewn, go ahead and just flip it up. Now, you have a choice to make here. I do not like my recessed zipper to be, some people call it perky, some people call it lifting up. I like mine to be going down. Since I want mine to go down, I want my seam allowance to stay up, and I just flip this up, and then I'll top stitch on this top part, this top lining piece, to attach this band to that seam. However, if you want yours to be going up, you're going to push that seam down, and then you would top stitch underneath. It's a personal preference as to which way you like your recessed zipper to lay. I always do mine this way. I'm going to just top stitch. Either way you choose, you will top stitch from one side to the other, about 1/8 of an inch away from the folded edge. Here is how mine looks. I'm going to go ahead and complete those same steps with the other piece. Then we will put these linings right sides together, sew them, and box the corners. Once you have the recessed zipper and the lining top panel on both pieces, it's time to put the lining pieces together. We're going to lay them right sides together. We want to be careful that we keep these zipper edges out of the seam, so you can push them down, you can clip them to the top, whatever works for you. But what you'll do is you'll match up the sides, the tops, the bottom, everything. It should all fit perfectly well together. And then you're just going to sew down the sides and the bottom. We are not leaving an opening in my method. If you want to follow the pattern instructions for how to birth, you would want to read over those before continuing on. At this point, you should have sewn around the sides and the bottom, leaving the box corners unsewn, leaving the top unsewn. When we go to box our corners, just stick your hand inside, open everything up really nicely, and then clip those seams together. I tend to butterfly, but you can nest if you want. Since I'm using foam and I have a lot of bulk in my seam allowance, I'm going to use one of these bigger clips to just kind of help it hold really nice. I like to flatten everything out completely. Like I push everything down so I can make sure I get a really nice straight sew here. Go in with the full seam allowance once again. I missed my seam a little, so I had to go back in and do it again because I realized that I wasn't going straight. I was kind of sloping down. So you want to make for sure that it's definitely straight. If you're having trouble seeing if it's straight, like you have a little bit of overhang like I did, and that's causing you to have the problems, go ahead and trim that up so you can make sure that you did indeed sew straight across. I'm going to repeat that step for the other side over here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the time off camera to fold down this top raw edge just to that line. I'm not folding at the line like this, I'm folding to the line. So when you come back, I'm going to have this piece folded down, the other corner boxed, and I will have it sitting inside the exterior and everything matched up. The only thing I'll need to do is to sew around that with the handles attached. I have everything ready for the final stitches on this bag. My exterior is right sides out. My lining is wrong sides out and it is dropped into my exterior. I have both the exterior and the lining clipped down and then clipped together. I have the zipper closing to the left on the front of the bag so that I have everything pretty much organized the way I want. I have the straps matching up perfectly. I have them pushed in maybe about 3/4 of an inch, so there's plenty of room there for security. Make sure they weren't twisted. Everything looks good. Now what I do is I slide it under the needle. So I'm going to back stitch, and I make sure that I have my bobbin the color that I want to be showing on the exterior side. When you go over the straps, make sure they are lined up straight. I finished my Bristol shoulder bag after I sewed around the top, did the top stitching. Then I just added the zipper pull and a zipper tab to finish up that recessed zipper. So my method worked out okay, but I probably wouldn't do it again because the foam on the sides lets it kind of poke out here since it doesn't have the same shape. If the lining was the exact same shape as the exterior, I wouldn't have that problem. But since it's different, it does give me some grief here on the sides. Not too big of a deal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do some folding and clipping to compress that down and to get it to lay the way I want. But next time I won't put foam on the lining. I didn't want to put foam on the exterior because I wanted to sew everything and then attach foam. And I had this zipper and I didn't want to put it under my heat press, but I still could iron or sew the foam in. So I will do that next time just to make it easier. Not a problem with the pattern, a problem with me doing my own thing instead of following the pattern directions. But this shape is really cute. I love how it's kind of square, kind of boxy. On the back, you can have a backpack version. If you do the backpack, I left mine as just a shoulder bag. Let's look inside just to see the shape there. And that is the main reason why I love to do a drop-in lining. Just because you get a really nice and snug lining. Perfect fit there. That's my preference for doing a drop-in because you can kind of control a little bit better. Other than that, this pattern is from Stitches by Christy. It is the Bristol. It is designed to be a backpack. My fabrics are all from Jen's Fabrics. This is a panel. This is a coordinating print as well as this one. They are on pre-order right now. And I do have my code in my description for you to get 10% off the total. So that will be linked there. Tag Heartwood and Hyde. The zipper and the zipper pull are both from Altalia Fiber Arts. Everything will be linked in the description. I'm going to go off camera, get everything clipped and pressed down, and get ready for some pictures for this bag, and you'll see it on Facebook. Thanks so much for watching another tutorial of mine, and I hope today in your sewing room that you are still proud of yourself, even though you might make silly choices sometimes that affect the shape of your bag. Still be proud of yourself because you showed up, you sewed a bag, you did the thing, you put forth the effort, and even if it's not perfect, It's still a skill that a lot of people don't have. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.